So why do I think it's potentially very dangerous for people to have 100% of their money invested in the S&P 500, or for that to be their only stock-like position in their portfolio? I mean, how bad can it be? Even Warren Buffett is famous for saying, that's what he advises his heirs to do. Just invest it in the S&P 500 and don't worry about it. And you know what? That might be great advice for billionaires, but unless you're a billionaire, be sure to stay tuned, because I think it's potentially very dangerous. And here's one of the reasons. The first one is, how comfortable would you be having 100% of your stock allocation in 4 or 5 different stocks? I think most of us would be very worried about that. But yet, if you look at the S&P 500, the top 5 stocks are 25% of the entire S&P 500. The S&P 500 is what's called a market-weighted index. So the bigger a company is, the more valuable it is, the bigger its position is in that index. And let me give you some examples. As of July of 2024, Microsoft was 7.25% of the entire S&P 500. NVIDIA was 6.63%. Apple was 6.62%. And if you look at both classes of shares for Google, which is known as Alphabet now, that's about 4.3%. So if you add that up, those 4 stocks are about 25% of the entire S&P 500. And then if you look at Amazon and Facebook, that brings us up to almost 30% of the index is represented by 7 companies. That's not a whole lot. And so you want to be careful. Now, so why, the title of this video is particularly for retirees, it's dangerous. And here's why. If you're still working, you have time to make up more money. You have time to make a mistake that might be costly, but you can still make it up. But if you're retired, this is your entire nest egg. And while often people make money, wealth is created by having more concentration. For those that guess correctly, that invest the right way, wealth can be created that way by concentration, by fewer positions, by having a higher percent of your portfolio invested in stocks that you have a high conviction, you've done your homework. But you know what the nice thing is about building your wealth for retirement, building your retirement nest egg? The nice thing is you only have to win once. And then once you've won, quit playing the game. Then job number 1 becomes don't lose money, right? It becomes holding on to that retirement nest egg. And so if you're getting close to being able to retire, if you are retired, boy, you really want to diversify, and you want to have sleep at night factor, that you're not going to have to worry about your hard work going away and maybe you having to unretire. And unfortunately, about half of all Americans unretire at some point. They go back to work. And I'd like to say that, folks missed work and they were bored, but the truth is, of those numbers, the vast majority of them unretire because they have to. They have to supplement their income. And I don't want that for you unless that's what you want for yourself. So once you've won, then quit playing the game. Now, I do think that there is a place at times where you can have exposure to the S&P 500. First off, if your only goal is to beat the S&P 500, first understand what a big goal that is and how difficult that is to achieve. But a lot of people, as a financial advisor for over 20 years, I can share with you, a lot of people tell me that's what their goal is. They want to beat the S&P 500. And if your only goal is to beat the S&P 500, then the best way to do that is to just accept a tie and say, I'm going to match the S&P 500. But for most of us, our financial goals are much more complex than that, right? We want to be retired. We want to have an income stream come off of it. We don't want it to be too volatile. We don't want too much ups and downs in our portfolio. Maybe we want to leave a legacy to our kids or to a charity or a cause that we care about. So our goals and our restrictions and our constraints are much more complex than just beat the S&P 500. So I think we should be ranking ourselves and our success in our investments is, am I on track to meet my goals? Am I able to sustain my life for the next 30 or 40 years, whatever your retirement time horizon is? Is it tax efficient? If you look at the expenses of most retirees, many retirees are not going to list taxes as one of their expenses, yet studies show us that taxes are a significant factor in retirement. So you want to be tax efficient. So what should you do instead? I'm saying, I think the S&P 500 is potentially dangerous. So what should you do instead? I think being diversified, having some global exposure. The U.S. has done well since World War I. The U.S. has really been a superpower, not just from a military standpoint, but also from an economic standpoint. And really, that happened with steroids after World War II, where the country started taking off and doing much better. But that's not always the case. Just because the S&P 500 has done well in the past doesn't mean that we're going to continue to do well. And in fact, if you look at the S&P 500 versus a world index, if you look at the 1980s, so since World War II, as I said, the market's done much better than a global index. The S&P 500 has. But if you look at the 1980s, if you look at the 1990s, if you look at 2000, 2010, and now the 2020s that we're in the 1980s, a world index would have beaten the S&P 500. And in the 2000 to 2010 period, the world index would have beaten the S&P 500. So yes, since 2010, so for the last 15 years, the S&P 500 has done really well. A, that doesn't mean it's going to continue to do well. And B, is that really relevant? Is your goal, of course we'd love to be able to pick, the next best stock that's going to do really well, but is that our goal, or is our goal to slow and steady and dependably be able to build up our wealth, and then more importantly be able to keep it once we've finally been able to get there? So I'll leave you with this. If you do a Monte Carlo simulation, which is a statistical method of understanding your probabilities of success, and I should say none of this that I'm sharing today is financial advice. This is a hypothetical Monte Carlo. It's not any specific person. Anything that I'm saying here, I don't know your situation, so I can't give you financial advice. But I can tell you you should work with a financial professional, either a fee-only financial advisor or an accountant to help you with some of these things. But if you do a Monte Carlo, which really answers the question that a lot of us have, which is, what's my likelihood of success? Right? And as a financial advisor, I want my clients to have a 95% likelihood of success, a 97% likelihood of success. I want it to be as high as possible for my clients. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right answer, right? For some people, they'd be fine with 80% likelihood of success in being able to retire a couple years early. But let's look at the S&P 500 and let's look at a global index. If you had 100% stocks and a 4% withdrawal rate, which many of us use as a rule of thumb, I don't think it's good enough to actually make the retirement decision, but let's just say a 4% withdrawal rate over a 40-year period. If you were 100% stocks, which few people that would be a match for, With the S&P 500, because it's not as diversified, you'd have an 80% likelihood of success. And with a global index, you'd have a 90% likelihood. So 10 percentage points higher. And with a more traditional, a more common 60-40% portfolio, 60% stocks, 40% bonds. There, if you did a Monte Carlo on that 4% distribution rate over 40 years, you'd see that the S&P 500 has a 70% chance of success. Few people would be willing to take that risk, and they'd say, I want to have a higher likelihood of success, which means you're probably working longer and saving more money over time. Or, another thing is to change the strategy. If you look at a global index, instead of a 70% chance of success over that 40-year period with a 4% withdrawal rate, you'd have an 80% likelihood of success. Now, there definitely are people that would be willing to take an 80% chance of success. And the reason for that is you don't fly the plane into the ground, right? You have a 20% chance of success. And let's say you retire with $800,000. So you have a 20% chance that that's not going to be enough. But you know what? In well over half of the cases, you're going to die with significant amount of money. So that's how the Monte Carlo works. It says in 20% of the cases, you're not going to have enough money. In the other 80% over a 40-year period, you're going to have money left over. But many of those cases, in that 80% in this case, many of those cases are going to have, if you retire with $800,000, potentially millions of dollars. So why is the S&P 500 not the best tool for everybody? I'm a fan of taking on no more complexity than what's needed. But in this case, it's just not complex enough. It's too simple of a tool. It's ineffective because it's too simple of a tool, and it has its flaws. As I said at the beginning, it has about 30% of its total market exposure is with those 5 or 6 companies that we talked about at the beginning. And if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed the thought process that I'm sharing here, I know that you're going to enjoy this video, which is kind of your next question, which is, when do you retire? And that's why retiring at I made this video, retiring at 65 is a big mistake. I'll see you in that video. Thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.